Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Dodgers Dawgs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I will be your host this afternoon, and it is an absolute privilege to be able to do this again. It's been a little bit since I've been able to go, especially on a show where I've been solo, doing my own live Monday night shows. I actually was just checking it before the show, and it's been 4 or 5 weeks or so since I've had the chance to be able to do this. Absolute privilege to be able to do this on Monday nights, to be able to interact with you guys. And I want to be able to interact with you guys about the state of the Dodgers, because since then, and while I have been on shows since then, I have not been on a show since the previous road trip for the Los Angeles Dodgers, which obviously did not go the way the Dodgers intended. There was a lot that happened during that time period, and this isn't necessarily going to be a show that's going to be ultra reflective on what happened in the past, because what happened during that road trip was a giant wasted opportunity for the Dodgers and showed a lot of holes that the Dodgers have at this moment. The beauty about baseball, and this was actually something I was listening to during Clayton Kershaw's post-game interview after his most recent outing, which I believe was yesterday, which he talked about the beauty about the game of baseball, and something about the frustrating part about the game of baseball at times is it happens every single day, which means that if the Dodgers are struggling, they go out there and they could put out a losing streak, which we have not seen in quite a while. But they also have the exact same opportunity to move ahead and move past what happened in the road trip, move past what happened in Pittsburgh, move past what happened especially in that Saturday game against Baltimore, and go ahead and move on and start a new winning streak against the Colorado Rockies. These are going to be some big games, especially for the Dodgers to put themselves in a position to where they can be in a decent spot in the postseason. Yes, it has been a struggle for the Dodgers, but they still have an opportunity with the final 19, I believe, games left that there is on the season to go out there and put themselves in a decent position and really set up the series next week, next Monday through Wednesday, I believe, against the Philadelphia Phillies, who now will be without Trey Turner and now will be, I believe, without Alec Boehm as well during that series. Both just today were placed on the injured list. That's going to be a big series if the Dodgers are able to put themselves in a position to make that a big series, and that starts today against the Colorado Rockies. It's a 3-game series against the Rockies where they play at home. It's great to be back in Dodger Stadium. Then they've got a day off, followed by a 3-game road trip to San Francisco, which, if you have not been paying attention, the San Francisco Giants have been playing some pretty good baseball as of recent. So that's going to be a big series going up against the San Francisco Giants, even just for the playoff positioning. And then obviously the series against the Philadelphia Phillies next week. You cannot look ahead to any of these series. It starts at 1 game at a time for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and moving past what was the ugliness that was the previous series, because, and this is something that I still believe a part of this team, and perhaps this is something which I want there to be a lot of interaction with the show. We'll get into the comment section in just a minute. Please leave your thoughts about the Dodgers or anything related to the Dodgers as well. I still believe that there is a great team, a good team within the foundations of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And one of the things that's going to help massively with this club and with this organization is the return, particularly of Max Muncy and Alex Vesia, who both of them are expected. I don't believe there's any official moves. If there's any official moves during the course of this broadcast, we will bring that to you guys and analyze what the move was for each one of those guys. But Max Muncy and Alex Vesia are returning. And you can't, especially with Max Muncy, and we're going to talk about Max Muncy first because the offense has been struggling a ton as of late. The importance of the skill sets that Max Muncy provides on the offensive side of the ball have been so much needed for this lineup. Because if you look at this lineup, and especially as of late, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman have pretty much been doing their job. And that was very much evident during the game on Sunday, where Shohei Ohtani reached base each and every single time. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman were able to do their job. Even through a lot of the course of the road trip, they were able to do their job. The length of lineup, especially when you're without a Will Smith, and especially when there are a lot of players on your roster that are either struggling or when they're not struggling, they're not even really able to get on base. The skill set that Max Muncy is able to provide, I think, is going to be really instrumental to helping this team, helping this organization. When I was on with Casey last Monday, we were talking about the state of the Dodgers. One of the things that I talked about quite a bit, and I still is very much true for this team, one of the things that they're going to need is they're going to need production from some of their outfielders. At least one of their outfielders is going to have to step up. Because if you look at their numbers, and this is going back until June 15th, so after the All-Star break, post-All-Star break numbers for a lot of their outfielders, just going by WRC+, Andy Pages has been a 90 WRC plus player since the start of the All-Star break. And especially as of recent, has been swinging and miss a lot more outside the zone and striking out a lot more than what is usual for him. And again, with Andy Pages, it's right now, since the All-Star break, a 5% walk percentage. With Teoscar Hernandez, I've talked a lot about the struggles with Teoscar Hernandez. Since the All-Star break, a 78 WRC plus, hitting .213 during that stretch. Again, 5.5 walk percentage for Teoscar. Michael Conforto, 84 WRC plus player. So if you're comparing Teoscar to Michael Conforto since the All-Star break, actually Michael Conforto's numbers are a little bit better. He actually is able to draw walks with 11% walk percentage, but the rest of his offensive game plan just hasn't been productive. We talked a lot and have talked a lot about the struggles with Michael Conforto. With Max Muncy, and especially since you haven't been able to, with your three main outfielders, get much production from them as of late, or at least it's below league average offensive production, and especially with Teoscar and Andy Pages not being able to generate walks and Michael Conforto's inconsistencies, not really wanting to play him, having a player like Max Muncy who has the ability to both draw a walk consistently, career walk percentage is about 12 to 14%, sometimes somewhere in that range. What that's able to do is that's going to create a little bit of a higher floor for this offense. You add on the fact that Max Muncy has the ability to run into some powers. What you see, especially with players like Pages and Teoscar, who have a lot of power, but they, at least in this season, have not generated a whole lot of walks, that provides much more inconsistency in your offense. That means there's a lot more feast or famine, or you're relying a little bit more on the batted ball data. And especially if the strikeouts are starting to go up, which for both of them, they have been going up recently, that creates a little bit more difficulty to see production. With Max Muncy and with the way that he forces pitchers to go ahead and attack him, I think that's going to provide a little bit of length. That's going to force pitchers to go ahead and battle against him, and that's going to provide a little bit of a higher floor to where, at the very least, Max Muncy is going to go out there and take his walks. He's going to provide opportunities to get on base, and I think that's going to potentially tire pitchers down and hopefully cause this offense to be a little bit better. Still, the offensive problems are not going to be fixed just with the return of Max Muncy, but adding him to this lineup certainly is going to help. And eventually with Tommy Edman, having him, especially with his versatility, to be able to go out there and play anywhere, and at the very least has a career production of maybe just slightly below league average, I think that's going to help raise the floor of this offense. But still, there is going to have to be at some point at least one of the outfielders are going to have to step up and be a mainstay, or at least be a little bit above league average bat. I think if that happens, I think the offense, because they still have Shohei Ohtani, because they still have Mookie Betts, because they still have Freddie Freeman as part of this offense, can mold with the addition, or return, I should say, of a Max Muncy. You add in one other player, which this is not asking players that are incapable or haven't showcased this in the past. These are talking about players that have showcased ability in the past to be able to step up and perform. You add in a different cast of players that can help fill in the rest of the roster, and this offense has the ability to be able to do so. The question is, are they going to be able to find the urgency? And that is going to be one of the things that I'm especially curious about you guys and what your guys' thoughts are. The urgency of wanting to go ahead and needing to win these games, win the games that you should win, to set up the opportunity to put yourself in a good position in the postseason. This series against the Colorado Rockies is and should be a series that the Dodgers go ahead and win. It shouldn't just be a series that the Dodgers go ahead and win. Obviously, it's very difficult to sweep series, but this should be an expectation if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers and you're going up against a Colorado Rockies team that has only won, I believe, 40 games this year. This should be a series that the Dodgers set high hopes on and going out there and competing. And that, I think, can help turn the page from what happened during this road trip, because it was ugly. And there's a lot of things to be able to say about the road trip. I'm not as focused about that. I'm more focused about what is going to happen going forward for the Dodgers. And I still believe in the organization. I still believe in many of the players on this team to go ahead and do the job. It is about actually executing at this point. So Max Muncy, great for him to be able to return to part of this lineup. I think he's going to help, at the very least, raise the floor and raise the at-bat quality and provide a little bit of additional power, which, if Andy Pages, Teoscar Hernandez, Michael Conforto, if Will Smith's not part of it, you're missing some of that power component to this lineup during the middle to later portions of the lineup. I think he's going to add a lot to this offense and make it really, really good. Alex Vesia, another one, expected to return. Again, I have not seen any official moves yet, but these are expectations that these guys are going to return at the very least sometime early this week. I believe the expectation is they're going to return tonight. Alex Vesia is another one who we've seen work and be an absolute dog at the back end of the bullpen, and especially with a lot of struggles that the mainstays of the bullpen, I'm talking about guys that the expectation was you were going to rely upon them. I don't think it's any secret that nobody really trusts Tanner Scott with the way that he's playing right now, and he has not provided any reason why you should trust him, aside from his track record in the past, because he has not been pitching well as of late, and he's given up a lot of runs in crucial spots. Having Alex Vesia return and being another piece that has been reliable in the past, I think is going to be really much of a benefit to this Dodgers lineup. Question is, who is he going to replace in this Dodgers bullpen right now? There's not really a whole lot of room as far as maneuverable guys if there's no sort of IL stint for everybody, because the only people in this rotation right now that have the ability to be optioned down, particularly talking about guys that are in the bullpen, are an Edgardo Henriquez, who has been pitching pretty well as of late, Justin Robleski, Jack Dreyer, and Ben Kasparius. And a lot of those guys, especially Dreyer, and even you could argue with the Justin Robleski Robo, they've been pitching really well as of late, and you don't want to option either of those ones down. And when you're talking about an Edgardo Henriquez and you're talking about a Ben Kasparius, man, if you don't necessarily trust a Kirby Yates right now, which he hasn't provided a whole lot of reason to be able to trust as of late, if you still have question marks about the command of Michael Kopech, he might be one of the more high-leverage right-handed arms that you got. So it's going to be an interesting decision to see what they do to bring Alex Vesia up. Obviously, Alex Vesia is one of the 8 best relievers that you have as part of your bullpen. So I'm curious to see what the actual moves are. Again, if those moves breaks while they were on live, we will talk about that here. But I think both of those things, you combine that with the fact that the Dodgers rotation still is really solid. It's a question mark of who's actually going to go on the mound tonight. I don't really know. I don't know if the Dodgers have an exact answer right now. Clearly, they have some answer in mind as far as what is going to happen tonight, but there has, as far as I'm aware, not been an official starter named for tonight. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to figure out during the game yesterday. Justin Robleski, and this could be part of the reason why, if they decide to send Robo down, they do. He did have 44 pitches during the game yesterday, which means he would not be available tonight, and he does technically have an option that he could utilize. So that would not necessarily be surprising, even though Robo has been one of the better arms out of the bullpen. You look at his numbers, has been really, really solid this year. So curious to see what the Dodgers are going to be able to do tonight. But I want to go ahead and interact with you guys as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Let's go ahead and get into the comment section. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Happy Monday to you as well. Go Dodgers. CNAB. CNAB. Kristen Rivaro. Good afternoon. Go Dodgers Dogs. Go Dodgers, back to you. Elishiva Jones is in the chat. Neil is in the chat as well. Go Dodgers. Showtime LA, Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope have finally been promoted. Yes, that is true. And this will go into something that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show. Right now, I'm currently wearing a Tulsa Drillers hat because the Tulsa Drillers are currently in a playoff push right now. And to assist with that playoff push, since unfortunately, and I was there when it happened, the Great Lakes Loons were eliminated from postseason contention last Friday. That meant that opened up the ability for Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope to be promoted. Josue DePaula, Zaire Hope are clearly kept in Great Lakes as they were pushing for a playoff spot. Now that their season is done, they have the ability to be called up to Tulsa. I'm really curious to see what the corresponding moves are going to be, because you look at that Tulsa Drillers outfield, you combine that with Zach Earhart, James Tibbs III, Cole Myers, Chris Newell, Damon Keith, all these guys are in Tulsa right now. You add in Hope, you add in DePaula, and I have no idea what exactly they're going to do for that. That move hasn't been official yet, but it's been reported on by some credited minor league baseball writers and stuff. So I'm excited about that. It's the final week of the regular season for the Tulsa Drillers. They currently have a 2-game lead over the Wichita Wind Surge. We will talk about their playoff push later in the show. Hit that like button for Austin. Absolutely. If you appreciate the show, would very much be helpful for us here at Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Johnny Owen, to be absolutely truthful, this team has been awful since the All-Star break. Absolutely. The thing is, that stuff has been in the past, and I still take hope. And perhaps this is foolish on my part. Perhaps I should learn based on what I'm seeing, based off the games that are having. I still believe that the talent that is within this organization, or that the talent that still this roster has, is still very much there. And so I think you can have both things be true at the exact same time. Both recognize that this team has not been good since the All-Star break, and you can date it back even further, and they've been mediocre ever since their really good start to the season. I still believe in the talent of this club, and I still believe that this team can match up with many of the other teams, because I don't believe that there is a juggernaut that is waiting out there during a postseason type setting, especially if the Philadelphia Phillies are dealing with injuries on their own, especially if there is potentially some inconsistencies with Milwaukee, especially if you still have question marks with the play that even the San Diego Padres, who, if they were playing really well, would take advantage on all the struggles that the Dodgers have, and yet still remain a game behind the Los Angeles Dodgers in the standing. I think all these things can be true at the exact same time. The Dodgers have been playing awful as of late, but they have the chance to be able to turn the page, and they have the talent on the roster that has the ability to go out there and win and play better. It is about actually executing. And there perhaps could be some reasons to be optimistic about it. I don't remember if I was looking since the All-Star break or I was looking at the past 3 weeks or so. But if you look on the batting average on balls in play, which is typically an indicator as far as whether a team is getting unlucky or lucky, the Dodgers batting average in balls in play was like 270 something, either since August 15th or July 15th. I don't remember exactly which one this was. And that was towards the bottom of Major League Baseball, which has some sort of reason to think, hey, perhaps the Dodgers are getting a little bit unlucky with some of their batted ball. So if that turns around, especially if that turns around at the right time in September, going into October, this team could really go off there and play pretty well. I still have hope for the team and the organization based off the players that are on the roster. The starting rotation is really, really good. The top part of this lineup is really solid, and I am hopeful that one of the outfielders is going to go out there and really produce and be a key contributor as part of this team. I think there's too much talent for one of them not to be able to do so. Little less hope in Michael Conforto, but with Teoscar Hernandez and Andy Pages, I still very much believe that there is something in there with one of them to be able to go out there and be a key contributor. And then there's a lot of names that have overperformed in the bullpen compared to expectations going into the season, or a lot of, especially with the younger guys, they have gone out there and stepped up in the absence of performances from guys like Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates, and with some of the injuries that the Dodgers have dealt with. I think there can be, and this becomes a question of what the Dodgers actually turn to during the postseason type setting. Who do they actually turn to? Do they go with the guys that have the name value, or as they should, do they go to the guys that are actually producing? And I hope, based off of the performances that the younger guys have, that when it comes to the postseason type setting, the Dodgers actually turn to a lot of the guys that are actually producing. If that's Jack Dreyer and he's a better pitcher right now than Tanner Scott, you best believe that the Dodgers should put in Jack Dreyer as opposed to Tanner Scott. If you believe in an Anthony Bonda more than a Kirby Yates in specific roles, put in Anthony Bonda over him. If Ben Kasparius, who has been pitching better over the past month or so, is going out there and performing well, put him in advantageous spots. Use the guys that are actually producing and that you actually believe in. And I think this is going to be, over the course of the next couple of weeks, opportunity for some of these guys, while some of the veteran-type guys in the bullpen are struggling, for some of the younger guys to be able to step up. And I think we've been able to see that with the Justin Robleski. We've seen that with Jack Dreyer. We've seen that at times with the Ben Kasparius. So this team, struggling since the All-Star break, no doubt about that. Still plenty of opportunity left going forward, and still all the goals, all the hopes, everything is still right in front of the Los Angeles Dodgers, even if it is something where they have to play in the wild card round. Everything is still in front of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and you can't stay rooted in what the negativity is of what has happened, especially with the game on Saturday. You have to move forward and understand that you still have all the ability to move forward and all the talent to go ahead and still win a World Series, and I still believe that they can go ahead and move a World Series. Shelly Lawrence, already done. Everything that has happened from this past week has already happened. Alan Minerva, learn from those mistakes. Important to acknowledge them. They're professionals. They've moved on. Otherwise, they would have given up yesterday. I think that's absolutely right. And I think, and especially with the show that Coach Barracroft had yesterday, I think they really did a good job of highlighting the aspect and the importance of what it meant to go ahead and move on from that game yesterday. And just the character that showcased for the Los Angeles Dodgers going forward, moving on past the incredibly disappointing and should not have happened loss on the game on Saturday, to go ahead and move forward, win that game yesterday. Absolutely crucial. Keep the momentum rolling and play good baseball tonight. I think that's what the hope for the Los Angeles Dodgers is, especially with the opportunity going up against the Colorado Rockies. CNAV, they've been in a tailspin since being swept by the Astros 4th of July weekend. It has not been pretty for a while now. Absolutely. CNAV, is Muncy back tonight? Good question. We're still waiting for official news from the Dodgers, but that is something that we are currently anticipating news on. Based on some of the reporting, is the expectation is Max Muncy and Alex Vesia will be returning hopefully tonight or sometime pretty soon. CNAV, Rojas has been handling the bat pretty good lately. Not as much for Andy Pages. Yeah, and this is dating back since the All-Star break for Miguel Rojas, but he's been absolutely a bright spot for this offense. Miguel Rojas, since the All-Star break, 270 to 102 WRC plus, never going to hit for much power, but a 10% walk percentage, strikeout percentage, 13.5. That's pretty good for a Miguel Rojas. Let's go the past couple of weeks. Let's go since August 15th. Miguel Rojas has been hitting 317 since August 15th, a 114 WRC plus for him. So Miguel Rojas has not been a problem at all. In fact, he's been somebody that's been one of the key parts of this lineup and helping lengthen this lineup. It's been great to see the work that Miguel Rojas has been able to do, and he's very much entrenching himself as an option for the Dodgers to turn to going forward. You mentioned Andy Pages as well. It's a 90 WRC plus since the All-Star break, 91 since August 15th. But the biggest thing that has been one of the reasons for Andy Pages' inconsistencies is over the past couple of weeks, strikeouts percentage is near 30%, 29.6% since August 15th. There's been more swing you miss. There's been more chasing and going after and trying to produce One of the things you like about Andy Pages, especially when he was good, is there is a aggressiveness that really helped him in his process of going. We saw the early progression of the season where Andy Pages was too passive and just trying to move runners over, or trying to do some of those small things. When he's Andy Pages, he has the ability to drive the ball out of the ballpark. He has the ability to be a really good player, and I think he leaned into that when, especially during the end of April to the June, in that stretch of really good baseball with Andy Pages. He knew that he was good at baseball, and when Andy Pages knows that he's good at his baseball, that's when he's at his best. Right now, he seems to be understanding that the team is struggling right now in between a lot of different things, and I think you've seen more swing and miss approach into his game, and I still think that he can turn it around, and he still has been one of the most valuable players as part of this team. But his bat being able to go up and step up is something to keep an eye out for over the past couple of weeks. Let's see. Steven says, I saw a post saying Betts to right field. Is that true? I don't believe so. I don't see any rationale as to why Mookie Betts would move to the outfield. I get it. The outfield is struggling quite a bit. But what is the alternative at shortstop? My guess is the answer would be, for some people, would be a Miguel Rojas. But the thing about Mookie Betts, and this is something that has been, especially with the way that Mookie Betts has been hitting as of late, I don't believe shortstop is the reason why Mookie Betts is not putting up the exact same numbers as to what he has put up in the past in his career. In fact, you've seen Mookie Betts, as he's gotten along, as he has found a little bit of his groove, start to be really solid. And defensively, you look at some of the metrics with Mookie Betts, they have been really solid defensively at the shortstop position, which is one of the most difficult positions to be able to play. Actually, I'm just going to pull it up. This is going to take me just a minute. It'll be a little bit clunky to be able to figure this out. But I want to show you guys, or talk about, the true defensive value that Mookie Betts has been able to provide at the shortstop position, to where I am not anticipating a move off of that. So if we're going off of outs above average, he's slightly above league average at 3 outs above average, which this is extraordinary for a guy that was an outfielder that didn't really play shortstop until last year, and last year was at a -5 outs above average, -3 fielding run value. This year, it's above average from Mookie Betts, 3 outs above average, and 2 fielding run value. But one of the other defensive metrics, which you have outs above average, you have fielding run value. Those are 2 defensive metrics. One other one is defensive runs saved. And if you look at defensive runs saved, Mookie Betts has 15 defensive runs saved. And typically with these defensive numbers, 0 is league average. Anything above that is above league average. Anything below 0 is below league average. It is cumulative, meaning that the more time that you spend at a position, the more opportunity that you have to gain defensive value over the course of that. But 15 defensive runs saved for Mookie Betts is one of the better marks at the shortstop position for him. So Mookie Betts, just clearly put, with a lot of the defensive numbers, especially with these advanced defensive numbers, has been above league average shortstop. And I don't think that they would move off of Mookie Betts to try to go to right field, when the question mark, and still the question would be, you still have to be able to find production from your outfield, or in that case, that would move the rationale or the production that you would have to achieve to your infield. I just don't see that as something that the Dodgers are likely to pursue at this point. Tony, no matter what happens, they're going to have to fight. That very much will help them in the end. They're going to have to fight for a playoff spot, or fight for the playoff positioning. If they struggle against the San Francisco Giants, especially with the way that they've been struggling, and if they don't take advantage of series like this series against the Colorado Rockies, they're going to be stumbling down the stretch. And there are several teams that are going to be within, I think there are several teams within 5 games of the wild card spot. Still a massive jump that they're going to have to take. But if the Dodgers open up the window, other teams, there's a lot of other teams that could be fighting, especially with the San Francisco Giants, who technically, they're 7 games back. They have 7 games coming up against the Dodgers. Technically could control their destiny for the Dodgers if they go on and win all 7 games. I don't see that as likely, and I see the Dodgers waking up for that, but it still remains a little bit of a question mark. They're going to have to fight for what goes on for that. CNAV, when Edman comes back, who gets sent down? Hae-Sung Kim, does Call have options? Yeah, that's also another aspect of the Dodgers and their organization, especially when it comes, and why I'm curious about Max Muncy and his impending transaction being added up to this team. Curious to see what the move is going to be for that. So on the roster, when it comes to Max Muncy, we'll talk about this first. I think there's two possible or likely scenarios as far as the moves that the Dodgers could make. I think they could potentially option down to Justin Dean, who Justin Dean, and Casey and I have been very supportive of Justin Dean, and we love to see him at the big league roster. He's nothing more than a defensive replacement right now for the Dodgers, and they're not utilizing him in any other way. I could see that as a possibility for the Dodgers potentially optioning Justin Dean down to make room for Max Muncy, or, and this remains a question mark, what happens with Will Smith? Does Will Smith need to be placed on the injured list, perhaps retroactively to the 4th, so he could be called up sooner? Because right now on the roster, they currently have 5 different catchers, or they have not 5 different catchers, they have 4 different catchers, or 3 different catchers, I should say, as part of the roster. They have Will Smith, they have Ben Rotfert, and they have Chucky Robinson as well. Ben obviously stepped up the past couple of games since Dalton Rushing went down in the injury. That was great to be able to see him just step up and be able to help out with the pitching staff. He obviously was received by the Dodgers in the Hunter Fiducia trade as well with Paul Gervais, and that's the trade that they also got Adam Sermanowski, left-handed prospect pitcher, for the organization. Great to be able to see Ben step up in that moment. But the question is, does Will Smith need to be placed on the injured list? Because if he does, that's when you could potentially see a swap for a Max Muncy for a Will Smith and place him on the injured list. When it comes to a player like a Justin Dean, he could also be an option. And if those don't happen, or if Will Smith comes back and he's healthy, you do have an extra catcher that's on your roster. Chucky Robinson would likely be the guy that could be optioned back down to the minor leagues if Tommy Edman is able to come up. There's a lot of different moving pieces. Hae-Sung Kim perhaps could be an option if they wanted more of the defensive value, although I don't think they made any sort of indication that they want to put Justin Dean a whole lot in the lineup. I think they would much rather have Hae-Sung Kim be an option as part of the lineup as opposed to Justin Dean. And this is nothing against Justin. This is just with the way that the Dodgers have been utilizing each one of these players. I think that is a clear indication, and especially if you're having a couple of catchers that you don't necessarily or wouldn't always put in the lineup, that could be something to where they could turn and option one of those guys down to make room for it. Let's see, going on, CNAV, Vesia gets the ball in the 9th. Him or the kids, our veterans, have not been good. They have not been good as of late. Shelly asks, who is pitching tonight? It still says to be determined. I believe, and this is with me checking right now, I still believe it has not been officially announced. I have some notifications turned on. If it gets announced from people like Fabian Adaya or David Vesia, they would likely report it. I don't know who's pitching tonight. And they utilized Justin Robleski yesterday. I don't know if it's going to be a bullpen game. There probably and very well could be some maneuvering pieces where somebody could potentially be called up. I don't necessarily know what is going to go on, and especially with the impending transactions with Max Muncy and Alex Vesia, there could be a lot of moving pieces, and this roster could look a little bit different than what it looked like yesterday. So we'll see. Tony, when Edman comes back, I would move Pages to the bench. He cannot be a center fielder in the postseason, and I don't trust his IQ. Tricky thing is you would have to try to find some other players that you would trust in that type of environment that could be productive. And when we're talking about Andy Pages, he has been the most productive outfielder for the Dodgers. Defensively, he has been the best, especially when you're comparing him to Michael Conforto, him to a Teoscar Hernandez. He has been the better hitter in the outfield. I think it's a 111 WRC plus for Andy Pages on the season. It's below league average, obviously, for Michael Conforto, but it's also like a 96 on the season for Teoscar Hernandez. And I think defensively, if you're talking about defensively, I would trust Andy Pages more than a Teoscar Hernandez or a Michael Conforto. Obviously, the mistakes, and you can talk about the different IQ type of things. There could be some issues that you could have with that, especially with the base running. I don't think I'm a little bit less concerned with that as opposed to the overall production that I believe that they can provide. And I think Andy Pages has showcased that he has the ability, at least in this season, to be more productive in the outfield. But I think with Tommy Edman comes back, I think he's certainly going to get a lot of playing time in center field. And then it becomes a question, who do you trust in your corner outfielder? Is the corner outfield of Teoscar Hernandez and Alex Call? That would be my guess as far as the suggestion from Tony. Or is it a Teoscar Hernandez or Andy Pages and a Kike Hernandez? There's a lot of moving pieces that can be had with this lineup, and certainly I hope it is based off of who is actually performing well, who's playing well, and it's not an inheritance that certain players, because of their veteran presence, are going to naturally earn a spot even if the production indicates that they don't deserve that spot. Harold, there's no moving past what they did to Yamamoto, and like some on this team, he always does post-game interviews without throwing a fit and walking away or completely avoiding the interview. This is not to say that I'm discrediting what happened on Saturday during the Yamamoto game. That was one of the most humiliating, disgusting losses that the Dodgers have had in a very, very long time. When you're a team, you have a decision to make, especially when you have that type of moment. You can either rest in it, and certainly the fans have the ability to be able to rest in that, and certainly not trust the team or not trust certain players because of what happened in that game. But as a team and as an organization, you have no choice but to move on from it, because you have to move on, and because that did not end the Dodgers season. It might have felt like that was rock bottom. It might have felt like that was the end to the Dodgers season, but everything is still in front of the Dodgers. And you have to have that mindset and continue to move forward. And if the Dodgers end up winning the World Series this year, which I know a lot of people aren't super high on their chances this year right now, but they certainly still have a good, solid chance of making it and potentially winning the World Series this year with the talent this team has. If they go ahead and win the World Series this year, the pain that was felt during that performance, I'm not going to say it's going to be completely eliminated, but it's going to be lessened quite a bit. And that's what the focus of the team has to be on. Tony, whatever you think of Conforto, I don't think he's going to make boneheaded plays in the postseason. He provides a little bit of floor, what he makes on the, as far as being able to draw walks. He is below league average, or at least grades below league average defensively, and there certainly is question marks as far as the offensive upside. And that's what we've seen throughout the course of the season. There's been so many people that have been frustrated with Michael Conforto, is there should be some sort of higher floor that Michael Conforto, based on the professionalism and based on of his experience that he's had, he just has not been able to reach that this season. Tony, no one will benefit more from Max Muncy's return than Teo will take great pressure off of him. I certainly hope so, and the Dodgers certainly need some of their guys, especially some of their outfielders, to be able to step up, and I hope Teoscar Hernandez is able to step up, and that's able to take off some of the load for him. Johnny Owen, Padres scored 18 runs in their last 2 games against the Rockies. We need to sweep Colorado. I believe that's absolutely right. And I definitely, the Dodgers, the expectations, obviously it's one game at a time, but your expectations is you have to win the series, and you expect them to go ahead and sweep the series. It has to be one game at a time, and you can't overlook each one of these opponents, because we've seen that. The Dodgers should not have been swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates. They should not have lost the series against the Baltimore Orioles that have struggled quite a bit this series. The Dodgers should not have been swept in the season series by the Los Angeles Angels. You cannot change those right now. What you can change is what you do during this series against Colorado Rockies, and that has to be their entire point. Let's see, continuing on, going forward. Good point, Johnny. Hopefully the Colorado's bullpen is taxed. Absolutely. Hepatitis, see you later. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm not concerned about Tapala making the jump to AA, more so Zaire Hope. That jump ruined Cartaya, and I'm worried because Hope has way more strikeouts than Cartaya did in high A. Yeah, with Zaire, I think this was going to be the natural next progression for both Tapala and Hope. Meaning that next year, Josue Tapala and Zaire Hope, unless things go sideways, are going to start the season with the Tulsa Drillers. And with Zaire Hope, we saw a lot of really good things with Zaire throughout the course of the season. We saw some power that he was able to hit. The bat to ball at times was really solid, but I think as Hepatitis C later mentioned, it wasn't always consistent for Zaire Hope, and there was certainly a lot of swing and miss that he has. Exit velos remain absolutely legit for him, and there still is a lot of raw potential. And let's not forget, Zaire Hope, Josue Tapala, we're talking about 20-year-olds. I think they're 20 or 21, extremely young. And this is what you got to do, especially with these players, and especially because the Dodgers have a lot of outfield talent. There has to be some patience that you have with each one of these guys. With Zaire Hope, I think it's going to be with some of the upside that he showcased in high A, and I watched every single one of his games this season, I think it was clear that the talent was far beyond what high A baseball had, what the Midwest League baseball was able to showcase. And I think as the season was going along, you started to see a little bit more swing and miss, especially towards the end. You got to see a little bit more swing and miss for Zaire Hope. I think he can go out there, and I think he can actually produce at some point. And I think the challenge of AA baseball, which remains one of, if not the most difficult jump in minor league baseball, the jump from high A to AA, very difficult to be able to do. I think keeping Hope and Tapala together to be able to work through a lot of that stuff is clearly part of the plan for the Dodgers, and one of the reasons why Josue Tapala was kept out at Great Lakes for just about the entirety of the Great Lakes Loons season this year. We'll see what happens with both of them. They're both going to have the ability to go up there and perform. How they go about playing time during the end of this season and hopefully for a postseason run for Tulsa is going to remain a little bit of a question mark. We'll see exactly what happens. Tony, I think one of Andrew Heaney, Brock Stewart, and Roki Sasaki needs to be considered as far as a start for tonight. Heaney is not on the 40-man roster, so that would require some additional move that gets made to this roster. Johnny, let's see, let's see, Hepatitis C later. How do you compare Cartaya and Hope offensively in the stage? They both striked out a lot in high A, but Hope does have better contact skills, swing decisions compared to Cartaya's and A ball. Yeah, I think you're right on with that. Hepatitis C later. I think it's more has to do with the fact that when Zaire Hope is able to make contact, I think it sounds a little bit different. This is nothing against Diego. I loved Diego coming up when he was with Great Lakes. I think that aspect of Zaire Hope's bat, I think it sounds a little bit different. And I think especially when it comes, I think a lot of it comes down to Zaire Hope. He spends a lot of time, especially, he can take a decent amount of pitches as well when he's at the plate. And he can try to force his way into finding situations to where he might be a little bit more susceptible as to swinging and missing, meaning he might take the first pitch decent amount and see where things are at, and that might set him up to swinging and missing at a changeup down and low or a pitch that is tailing down and away from him. With Zaire Hope, I think he's still got extraordinarily bat-to-ball skills that he can utilize, especially when he's able to make contact, and especially with the exit velo, there's a lot more thump when he's able to make contact. And I think he can be a more patient hitter as well. I think it's about balancing the two while also being able to make a little bit more consistent contact. That is going to be some of the approaches, because the actual raw tools as a hitter for Zaire Hope, with his raw power, with his raw ability to be able to go ahead and make contact, very much is still in there for Zaire. It's about putting all those tools and making it a more consistent game, which I think, and this is the difficult part about just judging the raw numbers in it of themselves, especially when it comes to minor league baseball, becomes a little bit more difficult to make a complete judgment on those statistics in and of themselves. I think if you look at the whole process portion, I think Zaire Hope has done a really good job with the process portion of things this year, and I think that's going to set him up for some success going forward. And I think this is something we saw quite a bit with Zaire Hope with some of his careers, dating back to last year in the Arizona Fall League. Got off to a really hot start, and then started to cool off a little bit. With Zaire Hope this year, got off to an extremely hot start, and there was a lot of stretches of really good baseball. Cooled off a little bit at the end. It was a little bit quiet during the final week, especially of the season for Great Lakes. So I think if he can find a way to be able to sustain a lot of the early success, that is going to be some of the things that I'm going to be looking for with Zaire Hope going forward. Tony mentioned Kyle Hurt might be their wild card. He is on the 40-man roster. He could be added to this team. I'd be curious to see if they would be able to utilize him, and if they have a way to be able to get him onto this roster with all of the different pitchers that they have that don't have minor league options. Can option down right now Kirby Yates, Michael Kopech, Anthony Banda, Blake Trinan, or Tanner Scott. I know Tanner Scott is a little bit unfortunate for some of the people, so it's a question of, do you take Kyle Hurt over a Jack Dreyer? Probably not at the way that Jack Dreyer is pitching. Do you take a Kyle Hurt over a Ben Kasparius, or a Justin Robleski, or a Edgardo Henriquez? Those are the questions that you have for the roster. CNAB, Pages has been chasing sliders off the plate. Very much aware. I was actually privileged enough to be able to go to the game last Wednesday in Pittsburgh. I was in Eastern Ohio, just east of Cleveland, watching the Loons in their playoff push. And Pittsburgh was only 2 hours away, so I made the drive out to Pittsburgh after the day game for the Loons. And Pages, with bases loaded, I believe it was with a full count, swung at a slider down in the low off the plate during that game. Very much frustrating. Hope that he's able to figure that out and just get back into the state where we know Andy Pages has the ability to be able to do that. Who is our closer? Very good question mark. I don't think there's necessarily a closer right now for this team. And you have to go with whoever is pitching the best. And I think a lot of the hope is that Tanner Scott, because of what he's done in the past, and because of how good we know that Tanner Scott has been and can be, let's not forget, this is the Tanner Scott that dominated Shohei Ohtani during the postseason last year and was really, really good and can be that type of pitcher. He is not that type of pitcher right now. And so the question mark is, who do you actually trust? And I would have said Blake Trinan until he really struggled, obviously, against Baltimore during the game on Saturday. He is an option for this team. I think Jack Dreyer, with what he has been producing, has been somebody that has stepped up in big moments. With Alex Vesia coming up, he could be somebody that the Dodgers could turn to, but it's a very much question mark of who the actual closer is, and I don't think there's an exact answer. I think it's going to be determined by who's actually going to pitch well for this team. Let's see, going ahead, CNAB, Kendall George stole a zillion bases this season and didn't get promoted. I don't have any official word on this. What I will state is with Kendall George, which, by the way, Great Lakes season got finished. Casey and I might do a show where we talk a little bit more in depth about the Great Lakes Loon season, but Kendall George was one of the main contributors because I want to let you guys know, if you aren't aware, Kendall George, first round draft pick from the 2023 Major League Baseball draft, stole 101, I believe, 100 stolen bases for the Great Lakes Loons this season, which is unthinkable in minor league baseball. One of the absolute best seasons by a stolen base team in minor league baseball. And I've never seen anybody as fast as I've seen Kendall George before in my entire tenure of watching baseball up close and personal. Nobody is faster than Kendall George that I've seen. It was absolutely unreal, and especially with Kendall George, and this is the biggest thing that has been of benefit to him, and what completely turned his profile from what he was in Rancho to being a really solid player for Great Lakes. he really cut down on his strikeouts. His strikeout percentage during the last 5 months of the season was hovering around maybe 12%. With that profile, with his speed, and with his ability to be able to go out and make chaos, he is a difference maker. Now, one thing to note about Kendall George, and this was something that if you paid attention to the lineup, was very much noticeable. During the final week and a half of the season, he played almost exclusively designated hitter. He was not playing the outfield, and if you look at the final three lineups for the Loons, which included a game in which they had to win that Friday against Lake County, Kendall George was not part of the lineup, which indicates that he probably, even though he was getting to that 100 stolen base mark, probably was not completely 100% healthy during that aspect. So I think that's part of the reason why Kendall George, you also do the math as far as the number of outfielders that Tulsa has. There's a lot of people that the outfield that Tulsa Drillers have to fill in, and there's only 4 spots probably at maximum that they could fill in. I think that was likely part of the main rationale. That's why Kendall George wasn't promoted. He was an absolute difference maker, and I would not shock me in any way, shape, or form, because he absolutely deserves it if he gets promoted to start next season, and it's a Josue DePaula, Zaire Hope, and Kendall George outfield, as well as some other players mixed in Tulsa. That would not surprise me at all. Kendall George is absolutely amazing. However, with him only playing DH and not playing the outfield, and with him sitting the final 3 games, I have to imagine that he wasn't 100% healthy, especially in a do-or-die game, that Friday game against the Lake County Captains. That's a little bit of insight that I have as far as Kendall George. Speaking of the minor leagues, I currently have Tulsa Drillers hat right now. I want to give you guys a little bit of an update, because not only is there important games going on for the Los Angeles Dodgers, but there is critical games going on across the organization this week at the minor league level. Let's start off, not with Tulsa, but let's start off with the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. Because the Quakes, because of their record, which their record was phenomenal during the first half, they clinched a playoff spot. So this is where the minor league baseball set up for the postseason when it comes to AA, High A, and Single A is far different than what it is for Major League Baseball. For minor league baseball, for those 3 levels, AA, High A, and Single A, you have a first half division winner. So with the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, there are 4 teams in their division. You have a first half, which happens after the first 66 or 69 games of your season, depending on how many games there actually are in the season, difference between the actual levels. The Rancho Cucamonga Quakes were able to win a first half playoff spot, which means that they automatically get to go into the postseason, and they will host playoff games at the very least this Thursday and potentially Friday as well. So if you are anywhere near Rancho Cucamonga, very highly recommend checking out the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes this week, because they will be going up against some pretty tough competition. And this what's fascinating about this matchup is there's a little bit of dichotomy between the first half and the second half. And this is the difficulty, especially if you clinch a first half playoff spot at the minor league level, is the Quakes were phenomenal during the first half. There was times when they were one of the better teams across entire minor league baseball. They were that good. During the second half, though, they have taken a little bit of a step back. I believe it's a 27-39 record in the second half. They could have gone 0 for 66, and they still would have made a playoff spot because of what they did in the first half. What's interesting is their opponent, the Inland Empire 66ers, took the exact opposite approach during this season as far as their season and how it lined up. Inland Empire was terrible during the first half of the season. I believe they were 18-44, 18-48, something like that. Just not good at all during the first half. This second half, though, they've been able to turn it around and turn it around quite a bit to go ahead, win 40-something games, clinch a second half playoff spot. And now you have Rancho going up against Inland Empire. Best 2 out of 3 to advance to the championship I highly recommend, and this is a call, especially with Rancho Cucamonga. They obviously are moving affiliates to be part of the Angels organization next year once the Ontario team is able to become the low A affiliate of the Dodgers. As a support of recognition for what they have done in Rancho Cucamonga to support the Dodgers organization, I highly, highly recommend and implore you guys to consider, especially because the Dodgers do not have a game on Thursday, to go to the playoff game on Thursday and experience the minor league baseball postseason atmosphere, especially if it's a struggle to get postseason tickets during Major League Baseball. There is something different about postseason baseball when games matter, and I think Rancho, the Quakes, very much need you guys to be able to go out there and go out and support the team. If you're in the California area, I highly, highly recommend you go out to the game on Thursday. Could be a game on Friday if a Game 3 is needed. And once that best 2 out of 3 series takes place, the championship best 2 out of 3 will happen. So even though the Quakes have struggled during the second half, they lost their last series of the season, 5-6. They lost 5 out of 6 to end the season. Even though that happened, it just takes 4 wins to win a championship. And this organization values teams and values that process of winning, even at the minor league level. And I think showing support for an organization, showing support for a team, very much is important. There's nothing I'd want more than to be at Loons playoff baseball this week. In fact, I have tickets for West Michigan's game that I won't be utilizing because I wanted to be there for the Loons playoff baseball. If you have the chance, if you have the opportunity to this Thursday, do it. Go to the game, Quakes. That brings us to Tulsa. Tulsa's regular season is not finished. They just came off a series against the Wichita Wind Surge, who are currently in second place in I believe it's the North Division in the Texas League that they are competing against. Tulsa currently has a 2-game lead over the Wichita Wind Surge to go ahead and fight for a post-even spot, which is incredible given the first half where there was a lot of struggle for the Tulsa Drillers. Coach Wedge has really turned that team around, and they have been an absolute competitive bunch. Here's what the Tulsa Drillers need this week, which they're going up against the Arkansas Travelers. They have a 2-game lead. However, with the playoff structure and with the way things are at, I believe that they have to be ahead in the standings of Wichita. They just had a 6-game series against the Wind Surge. It was split. The series was split, meaning each team won 3 games. The previous series in the second half, I believe Wichita won, which means that if this becomes a tie between Tulsa and Wichita, Wichita would take the playoff spot. So what needs to happen this week? Tulsa Drillers go up against the Arkansas Travelers at home in Tulsa. They need to win or they need to lose no more than 1 more game than the Wichita Wind Surge, meaning that if Tulsa splits the series and Wichita takes 4 out of 6, Tulsa would go ahead and advance to the playoffs. However, if Tulsa splits the series and Wichita wins 5 out of 6, and both of them are tied in the standings, the Wichita Wind Surge would go ahead and advance to the playoffs. I believe I have that correct. If I don't have that correct, and if you're actually following along with the Tulsa Drillers playoff search, I very much encourage you guys to be able to comment that down in either the chat right here or just in a comment down in the video. Tulsa is currently fighting for a playoff spot. They just called up Josue de Paula. They just called up Zaire Hope, who are going from a playoff push in Great Lakes to a playoff push in Tulsa. So again, as I implored the people down in California to go out and support the team, this is a massive week for the Tulsa Drillers in getting them back into the postseason and really helping with this organization go ahead and create a winning culture across the organization. That is very much a high emphasis. It is a massive week for the Tulsa Drillers. They got some games to win against the Arkansas Travelers. Wichita is playing against Corpus Christi, which the Hooks have not been good in the second half this year. 24-39, I believe, is their second half record. So Tulsa has to go ahead and perform and win some games to go ahead and hopefully set up postseason baseball for both Tulsa and Rancho Cucamonga. Oklahoma City, I don't believe is going to be able to make the playoff spot, just with the way that AAA does it very much different than what the rest of the affiliate ball does it. So I don't believe it is likely that Oklahoma City is going to be able to have it. I believe there are 2 weeks left for Oklahoma City's schedule. I believe that's how many weeks there are for Oklahoma City. For Tulsa, just 1 more week, and then the playoffs have started for High A and Low A. And once the minor league baseball season has ended, Casey and I will be able to do a deep dive and analysis as far as everything that has happened throughout the course of the minor league baseball season, and really talk about some of the under-the-radar prospects that you need to know about that have performed really well this season for the entire affiliates for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Thank you for all the good information. Joseph H., and this is what we'll conclude on. Over under 1 home run for Max Muncy this series. We'll go ahead. You know what? I'm feeling optimistic. I know the Dodgers, there's been a lot of negatives that the Dodgers have been undergoing, especially with all the losses that they've undergone that they should have won. But I think Max Muncy is going to be able to provide an impact. I'll say over the 1 home run mark. I think Max Muncy is going to go ahead and really provide an impact. And if it's not Max Muncy, I think other players are going to be able to step up, as this is a huge series against Colorado Rockies. It's not a series that you should take lightly. Although the Dodgers should sweep this series, it is a series that they have to take advantage of this week and go ahead and build some momentum as they go through this last stretch of their schedule. They have to maintain pace with the San Diego Padres or keep ahead of them if they want to go ahead and win the division, and especially with some teams that are crawling up in the standings. And if they want any hope of getting that second seed in National League and overtaking the Philadelphia Phillies and really setting up a great matchup with them next week with the Phillies without a Trey Turner and an Alec Boehm for a little bit of time, they have to take advantage of these type of games, especially against the Colorado Rockies. Still no move on Alex Vesia or Max Muncy being able to call up. Hopefully we get some clarification on that pretty soon. It probably will happen shortly after I'm done on here. And similarly with the actual starting pitcher for the game tonight and what the pitching plan for the Dodgers is this week. Still no determination as far as what that's going to be. But that is going to do it here for Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. I'm absolutely grateful for you guys. I will not be following on with the Great Lakes Loons right now. I got to wait 207 days until April 3rd until Great Lakes Loons baseball again. It's absolutely terrible that I got to wait that long. Going to be miserable waiting for Loons baseball, but you guys are going to make it so much better because that means that my schedule opens up quite a bit, going to less minor league baseball games, which means I'm going to have the ability to be able to do more of these shows. So we will be back each and every single week on Mondays, assuming that nothing pops up on my schedule. I should be on with Casey a couple of additional times per week as well, and especially once we hit the off season, we're going to be back and we're not conflicted by whatever the Dodgers schedule is. We're going to be back doing shows quite a bit on the regular. But until next time that I'm able to join in with you guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and go Dodgers.